Welcome to Khetztutorials and welcome back to the Python for Beginners series. I've already created a file called sets.py, and now let's just do a quick recap. We talked about lists, and when defining lists you have these square brackets. When defining tuples you have circular brackets, but now when we deal with sets you have these curly brackets. This is a set, like mathematics, this is a set, should make sense. And once again, I'm going to use our previous knowledge of lists and tuples to explain sets. So let's get right into it. So when talking about lists, I gave an example using colors. When talking about tuples, we used capital cities. Let's use programming languages for this video. So I can create a variable called programming_languages. So if I can write this properly, equals, then you're going to define our set. So this is an empty set, doesn't have anything inside. And as you can see, we use these curly braces. And in here, we're going to define whatever it is that we want to store in the set. Just like with lists and tuples, you can have any data type. You can mix the data types, and by data types, I mean the types exactly, like the variables, ints, floats, lists, anything. You can have anything inside here. But since we've already decided that we want to have programming languages, let's start. You're going to have C++. Don't forget Python. We're talking about Python in this series. And let's have Java. And just for the fun of it, let's have 100. So 100 obviously is not a programming language, but I just want to show that sets can also allow this mix. So we have a string and we have an int. So I just wanted to show that we can do that, and it's possible. You can have multiple data types inside the set itself. So this is a set, and we can print it. And as I print this, I just want to show you one interesting thing about sets. So, okay, it's a program. Okay, I didn't spell this correctly. That is why it's not suggesting, it's not finishing this for me. Thank you. So now that I have that, I just want to print this for you, and you should see something that's quite interesting. That brings me to the first point that I want to make about sets. So it's not the first point, actually, maybe the second or third, I don't know. But I've already mentioned that you use curly braces to define sets. And if you look at this set that I printed, or if you look at the result of that statement, these values that are stored in the set are not in the same order that they were defined. So sets are unordered. That is how you define that, or that is how you describe that. Sets are unordered. So whenever you print something, or whenever you print a set specifically, these values will be scrambled around. So these will be everywhere, and you can't really tell where each element will be. That brings me to another point. So you can't use indices when dealing with sets. Remember, we'd say that this is index 0, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3. Well, you can't if this will always happen. So these things are always scrambled around, so you can't have definite numbers associated with each of the values. So you can't access the elements inside a set, because whenever you print a set, it'll be scrambled around. Whenever you deal with sets, it is unordered. So this is not a constant order that you have when dealing with sets. And also, you can't change these things. So you can't modify C++, Python, Java 100, but you can add or remove items, right? So what I mean by that is you can actually, and the cool thing about this method, it's actually called add.add. Let's say you wanted to add another language, assembly. Okay, and now if I print the set, here's what's going to happen. This value assembly should be added to the set. So that is what I expect. So there is assembly. And we can also remove the two methods that we can actually use. One is called discard, and you have to specify what you want to remove. So let's remove 100. So let's see 100, and let's see what the result will be. Let's just clear the terminal. And if you look at this, 100 is gone. And once again, as you can see, it's scrubbing everything around. You can't really tell the output from the print statement, and it'll always be a surprise. So this is discard, or you could have used remove. Remove is another method that you could have used, and it does the exact same thing. Right? So if you do that, it removed 100. Right? So that is that, and those are the two methods. The difference between discard and remove is that remove will raise an error. It will tell you if you're trying to remove something which is not there. So let's say we wanted to remove another programming language which is not there. For example, let's say you wanted to remove dot, and it's not there. So let's see what this will tell us. So let's see. It brings out an error, but if you use discard and try to remove something which is not in the set, it will not erase the error. So fingers crossed, that is what we expect. And if you look at that, it couldn't erase dot because it's not there, but it didn't raise an error. Okay, so you can add, you can remove items, you know how to define a set. And one other thing is that with sets, duplicates are not allowed. So you can't have Java and Java, or let's use Java as an example. Let's try to print this set and see what actually happens from here. So you can't have duplicates in a set. So as you can see, there's only one Java in the output, even though in the definition we have two of them, right? And so sets don't allow duplicates. So that's another point that you have to note. And this just makes sense. You can't have multiple values that have the same name, or that have you can't have multiple set elements that have the same value, because you can't separate them, because we can't use indices. So you can't use, or you can't access any of these things. So how will we know the difference if there are duplicates like this, since we can't even use indices? So if you loop around everything that I talked about, all of this should make sense to you by now. So let me just summarize all that we've covered in this video. And before I do the summary, is another way that you can actually define a set, is if you say the variable name equals, then you're going to remove these curly braces, you're going to say set, and have these two round brackets, then have both of them at the end as well. This is another way that you can define a set. And below this, I'm just going to print the type so that we verify that we've actually created a set. So if you do that and I run this, expect to have the set printed. And if you look at the type of the variable programming languages, it's class set, which means it indeed is a set. So now let's do a summary of everything that we covered in this video. It was a bit all over the place, so I just want to summarize so that you make sure that we have everything. So the first thing that we mentioned is these are the braces or the brackets that you use to define a set. A set is unordered, so you never really know what the output will be, or the order of the output. You can't use indices when dealing with sets. And you can use the type operator. You can also find the length of the set, which is something which I didn't talk about, but let's include it in the summary, and you can do this for yourself. You already know how to use this function if you've been following along with the series. And no duplicates are allowed, so no duplicates. You can add or remove elements, and this is what we covered in this video. So if you've grasped these concepts, then you should be good to go in terms of sets. And these are the basics that you need to work with sets. So this is all that I had to cover in this video. Just want to introduce sets, how you define them, some of the characteristics of sets, as well as the functions that you can use on sets. So I hope you learned something of value in this video. If you like the video, just give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And I'll see you in the next video.